Hi, this is Catherine from Craft Me Happy. I'm in the middle of writing a blog post about how to make these mini wool combs. The handles are 3D printed and the spikes are made out of onion slices or onion holders. I've already made a hackle out of onion slices, and so I know they work really well for combing finer fibres like merino or alpaca. I recently bought some alpaca from a local farm and I thought I'd have a go at spinning it for the first time. But obviously, because it was my first time, I didn't want to spend a lot of money on buying some mini wool combs perfect for alpaca. So I made some, I designed some, and I just want to demonstrate how they work here. Spinners often spin alpaca unwashed. They open it up and spin it from the cloud. But as I'll be spinning it on an e-spinner, I would much rather spin from a really well prepared top than something that's fluffy and open and needs a lot of stopping and starting and slowing down. So I want to try and remove as much dust and dirt and vegetable matter from the alpaca before I start spinning. So what I will do, I will pick out the locks and I will just carefully put the tips, the dirtiest tips, on the spikes. And I don't put too much on the combs to start off with, because otherwise I'll be tearing the fibre quite a bit. So I just put just like the equivalent of 2 locks on. Just a small amount, and then what I want to do, I want to carefully pull it off the hackle, and this opens at the very ends, the tips of the fibres, which are always stuck together through dirt and weather and just generally being outside in a field. And alpaca like to roll around in the dust and the dirt, so it always gets very dusty and dirty, but it's not greasy, it's not got lots of lanolin like sheep, so it's actually quite pleasant to spin unwashed. I just need to open up the fibres and try and get as much of the dust and the dirt to fall out before I start spinning, because I don't want to have to keep stopping while I'm spinning to remove vegetable matter. Obviously, when I've spun my yarn, I'll give it a really good soak, and this will hopefully go from being a dirty, creamy brown to a nice white colour. So I'm just loading up my second comb with the fibre that's been prepped a little bit, and this is the waste from the combs. And I'll just keep on filling up this comb until the fibre's about halfway up. But just like combing really unruly hair, you start at the very tips and then work your way slowly down to the end, but taking care not to stab your fingers, because these onion holders are very sharp, just like regular wool combs. Just keep working my way down, and then when I've got just past the middle, I'll turn it round and do the other end. The first pass will open up the tips, and by turning it round I will remove any second cuts from the butt of the fibres, because I don't want to be spinning the shorter fibres. I just want the longer fibres from the alpaca. Alpaca is a short staple fibre, but it is nice to get just the longer fibres, because then you get a much better quality yarn. By combing just a couple of locks at a time, it means in the long run you'll spend a lot less time combing the fibres, and you're less likely to be ripping and tearing at the fibre. If you had a comb full of fibre that was all dirty and all the ends were dirty, then you'd have a lot more breakages and a lot more waste. It would become a lot more tangled. This I've learned from first loading up my comb with way too much fibre and wasting an awful lot of it. Now the fibres on the comb are always either the shorter fibres or the dirtiest fibres or the most matted fibres. And so it's just you can just throw those away. Okay, so my comb is about as loaded up as I want it to be right now. I did actually make myself some covers for the mini combs out of the covers for the onion slices. I just chopped them down and they pop on the spikes, and it means that I can turn this comb through 360 degrees, because usually when you're combing you only comb from 90 degrees through the sides, but by putting covers on the spikes it means that I can rotate this one through all directions, and it does allow me to see all around and be a little bit more thorough. Okay, so I'll just clean off my surface because it's covered in dust from the alpaca. Okay, now I'm ready to start combing. I start from the ends, as you normally would with any fibre, and just comb in, entering the fibre at 90 degrees. And I tend to flick away so that the fibre on this comb stays perpendicular to the comb. And because I've already combed each fibre through, this is much easier than if I was loading on dirty fibre. So you can still, there's still dust coming off it. Okay, so I have a little bit left on this comb, so I'll just give it a little wiggle and it comes off. And it's still usable because it's not overly dirty and it's long enough to spin. And there's a tiny bit left here, so I'll throw that away. I'll put the covers back on this comb. And maybe give it 2 more combs through. Now because I've got the covers on, like I said, I can rotate this comb through 360 degrees. Because if I didn't have the covers on, the fibres on this comb would get stuck if I went downwards, and if I went upwards, there's a very good chance that these fibres could pop off this comb. But with the covers on, it means I can rotate the comb through 360 degrees, always flicking away so that the fibres stay perpendicular to the comb. You always find that the last few fibres that are stuck on the comb will probably have a little bit of dirt in them, so you can just pull that off if it's easy enough to pick at. Now these ones will be all matted, so I will discard these fibres. I'll comb it one more time. So if you didn't flick away from the comb, if you combed in and didn't flick away, then it will be quite difficult to get to the fibres because the the fibres will be leaning well away, which is why you flick and roll as you're combing. So you pull the fibres off, but you're also pulling the fibres away from the comb, which makes it much easier to comb them on the next pass. You're also encouraging the dust and dirt to drop out at the same time when you flick it. Okay, I'll try and encourage these last few fibres off just by pulling them and jiggling them, and you can see there's quite a bit of dust and dirt in there. So I'll just try and get as much of that off as possible, but put that to the back so that when I pull it off the hackle, the dust is more likely to stay on the hackle rather than on the fibre. Okay, now these last bits I will discard because they will be very knotted and very dirty. I definitely found that by combing just a few locks at a time at the beginning, I did have an awful lot less wastage than if I tried to pack the comb full of fibre. Okay, I will now pull this fibre off and put it onto my hackle, where I have another 9 handfuls of fibre ready waiting for me to make a pulled top from.